Submit. Oh, here we go. Hello, everyone. Ooh, I hear a baby already. Love it. Hi, guys. You can come in if you want to unmute yourself and show yourself. That's fine. While we're sort of gathering, we'll start in just a couple of minutes. Let people kind of come in. And FYI, I am recording this session for posting later. So just so you guys are aware, I will be posting the session later on Facebook. That image is awesome. That's about right.
I thought it was a good metaphor.
Yeah.
For life right now.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Also,
I didn't mean to do that.
no, I want that. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, I've got more people. Admit. Alrighty, I think that I can safely begin. We got one more person joining, and then I'll go ahead and introduce everybody. Okay, person is joining. Okay. How do you do where you don't do full screen? How do you do that? Oh, figured it out. Okay. Technology is amazing if you know how to use it. All right. Okay, guys. So, hi, I'm Sarah Snow, and as you can see, I still don't know exactly what I'm doing. So, yay! But I want to welcome all of you, and as folks come in, I'll just admit them. Thank you for joining us. This is our third parenting session, COVID-19 edition, and we are really happy that you're here. I'm the Congregational Care Minister at Abiding Presence Lutheran Church. Part of my job is to lead the mental health team, and we have wanted to provide support in this time for parents for your own mental health, as well as your children. And so we have contacted two child psychologists in the community, Allie and Megan, and they have graciously allowed us to use them for all they are worth. So they have done 2 seminars so far, and they are doing this third one. And like I've said before, while Abiding Presence is hosting, this is not a religious presentation, so you do not have to be religious to enjoy it or get something out of it. So all are welcome. I want to briefly explain sort of how we're going to do this. Megan and Allie are going to provide a presentation, if you will, and they've got a slide that they're sharing a screen, so you should be able to see their screen with the slideshow. There will be points in time when you can answer questions. They'll have a time in the beginning where we kind of check in, and then in the middle, we'll have a break to sort of talk back and forth. If you need to talk to me or talk to them, but you don't want to interrupt, please just message me, and then I'll find a time when I can maybe put the question in, and that can be probably the most helpful way to get questions in, to kind of put them through me. So I think that is it. I will let Megan and Allie add anything if I've forgotten something, but let me introduce them to you. So many of you know already, Allie and Megan are both school psychologists. They practice locally with the counseling and assessment practice of Fairfax, and they are also moms. So they get this, and they are in this with us, and they are here to help us. So thank God for them. All right, Allie and Megan, over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. So I am Megan Davis. I'm a school psychologist by training, and I'm currently working, like Sarah said, with the counseling and assessment practice of Fairfax. We'll talk a little bit about our practice at the end, but we do, in normal times, we do assessments for things like learning disabilities or ADHD or emotional factors, a lot of which with children and teens, with the idea of like, how can we support them at home and how can we support them in the community. And we also do counseling, and we've been doing more parent consultation, especially during this time, because, you know, parents are with their kids all day, and hence the, you know, topic of today, and how we can, you know, support this new normal. I don't know if I like that term or not, because this is certainly not normal. And I do have 2 school-age kids that are in 4th grade and 1st grade. So I am with everyone trying to figure out this schooling at home thing. I refuse to call it homeschooling because I did not sign up for this. And, you know, we're trying to figure it out, do the best we can day by day. So I do live in Burke, which I think many of you do as well, since Abiding Presence, you know, is also in Burke. So I'm going to let Allie introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Allie Ferris, so school psychologist as well, practicing with Megan. I previously worked within the public school setting. I'm originally from the Midwest, but have lived out here for about 8 years now. Most recently, the past 5 years, I worked in an elementary school setting, but I have served kids preschool through high school, but most recently the elementary age, so helping support kids with their social, emotional needs, helping kind of figure out strategies or workarounds to help them find success within their school day. In our private practice, as Megan mentioned, a lot of what we do is helping support parents, but also supporting children. So we mentioned this, I think, towards the end, but whether it be our practice or another practice, if you do feel like you need supports or services, there really is a lot of telehealth where people can provide support for families in this kind of a median right now. So we are, yeah, we're here. We're ready to give you guys some tips. We don't have all of the answers, but we have a lot of different opportunities to hear from you guys as well. And then at the end, to just kind of reflect on if there's any of these strategies that you've tried, what's been helpful for you. So looking forward to get started.
Yeah, I should also add that I did also work in the public school system in Fairfax County, serving preschool through middle school during my time there. And I'm also working at George Mason University. Okay, so let's go. I'm sure you could see our little agenda here as we were going through our introduction. So these are just some of the things we're going to touch on today. You know, 9 points kind of is a lot. We're not going to go into a whole lot of depth on each of these, but kind of just give some different ways to think about things, or really just sometimes it's just a refresher to kind of refocus how to think about parenting during this time. So we've gone over the Zoom logistics. We did want to kind of just take a minute and allow people to kind of share, if they're comfortable, you know, how people are doing. You know, what's been the hardest part, what's been the biggest struggle. You know, we do plan to give examples as we go through today, and knowing like what's hard besides everything helps us to kind of tailor our programs to some extent. Also, what how your kids are. Because that helps us again to tailor. So if you could, if you want to share any comments to Sarah, you could do that now. You could just send them through the chat directly to her. And also if you could, if everybody wouldn't mind, if you're comfortable, just sharing quickly how old your kids are, just so we have a sense of how, what the ages are that we're talking about today.
And while you guys are typing, Megan and I can give a little tidbit. So I'm a mom as well. So I have a toddler at home, and I would say that my biggest struggle currently is access to outdoor space, parks. We live in a small home, so we don't really have a large yard. So having the parks closed down was pretty devastating for me. And just, yeah, getting his energy out during the day, especially Sarah and I were chatting right before. The gray, rainy 12 hours of rain days are especially difficult. So I would say that limited outdoor time or being able to access those parks have been one of more of my difficult times with my little one.
Yeah, I would say for me, the hardest part is just juggling how much of schooling to do, in what way, when to kind of push, when to pull back, you know, and there's no real clear answer on that. And, you know, just doing, even though I've been in education and been an educator my whole career, you know, I'm not a teacher, and I didn't sign up for homeschooling, and I'd say, yeah, that's been my biggest challenging while juggling other kind of work responsibilities and home responsibilities. So does anybody else have anything to chime in? Is there anything there, Sarah?
Oh yes, there's lots. So, alrighty, I'm just gonna read through, and it's like ditto, 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 ditto. Getting kids motivated to do the work. The ages of one person, their kids are 6, 8, and 11. Another person's children are 5 and 10, and her concerns are too much screen time. Another's son is 8. Hardest thing is working 50 hours a week and trying to help grandma with schooling. Another has an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, all boys, and then a newborn baby girl. God bless you. And another says juggling work, school, free time. Another one, bad attitude from not wanting to do anything. 8th grader and a 5th grader, both boys. Another says, mine are 8 and 3. Biggest struggle is 8-year-old is angry and thinks everything is unfair. The rest of the family hasn't had as much of the routine messed up. Husband goes to work. This person can still work from home part-time, and the preschooler has adjusted, but the 8-year-old, everything she ever did is gone, so all the activities. Another said this biggest struggle is the quick to anger 8-year-old. Lots of that must be that age must be tough for this time. Somebody's got 7-year-old twins. Biggest struggle has been the tremendous amount of energy that we have going on. The fighting, constant fighting, husband's temper, getting the children to listen. Another one said, getting them motivated to do any schoolwork when it's not graded. Amen. I'm unmotivated. There was one time when so I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, and my 9-year-old was working on some poetry thing. And I mean, I like poetry, but I was just like, oh my gosh, why are we doing this? But that was not very nice of me. Anyway, and then another person, there's a lot of 8-year-olds who just are not very happy. And another person said it's just a lot of energy, trying to get the energy out. So I'm hearing a lot of similar themes.
Yeah, and you know what? This kind of goes with this slide. Allie, you want to share about this?
Okay, so out on the internet, I am seeing so much of that uplifting, upbeat, we are all in this together. And while I do appreciate and love the kind of unifying message, and we are in this together in a lot of ways, in a lot of other ways we're not. So this whole coronavirus global pandemic, this is the storm that we're all weathering together. However, we are in very different ships, and we have very different experiences depending on our individual resources, our daily responsibilities, our support systems, our physical, our mental well-being, and that of our children as well. So all of that significantly changes this message, I feel. And then even within the same family, so there's differences from family to family, but even within the same family, even if you, I know someone said their life wasn't, majorly disrupted. So even within a family, if you feel like, yeah, we're kind of in this cruise ship, we have resources, we're kind of cruising along, well, maybe someone in your family is experiencing seasickness, to really just play that metaphor out. So even within a family, you're going to have individual unique experiences, and this changes from day to day as well. And so Megan and I are definitely not trying to say that we comprehend each individual nuance experience that you are bringing to the table. Only you know where you fall on this scale. Something that we heard quite often is like, I just need my child to do this so that I can do this. And so just hearing that kind of bullet by bullet of what everyone is experiencing, that's pretty consistent, that the motivation factor, getting the children to do the things, and kind of their attitude or anger and stuff as well, those are pretty consistent. So depending on really where your children or where you are on the scale, this is going to really impact the expectations that you're going to have for yourself and your kids. We're hoping, though, today to be able to share some tips with you that will meet you with where you're at. So that's really what we're hoping to do, but we're not, obviously not hoping to add more on your plate, but rather figure out what to do with what's on your plate right now.
Yeah, and I think, like Allie's saying, like we don't, pretend to have all the answers for everybody in every situation, because we're all doing this global pandemic thing for the first time, this being at home all the time. But, we've worked through crises before at schools. We've served on various teams with different families going through different things, or different classrooms going through different things. So in general, we're going to kind of provide some of those tried and true behavioral tips that have kind of been backed by research, stand the test of time in different situations. But, think about what works in your situation, what may work in your situation, what you might try, maybe pick one or two of the strategies. Don't feel like you have to do everything, or that because like Allie said, we're not trying to add too much. So just take what you want and leave the rest. Another thing to kind of,
So social comparison. So it's human nature, it's our nature to check and see what other people are doing, especially when we're in really uncertain times. When you walk into a room and you kind of look around and you reference what other people are doing, and it helps you figure out, what am I supposed to be doing in this situation? However, with social media right now, it makes it that much easier for us to constantly compare ourselves to others. Or at least our perception of what their reality might look like, and that might not be an actual true reality. So there are a lot of things within our day that we have to make decisions, and there really is no black and white, right or wrong playbook for how to get through your day. It really just depends on where you kind of are on that scale. So social comparison can be helpful. You log on to different social media and it helps you stay connected. Something someone posts may be really insightful or motivating or helpful, but it can also be this creator of feelings of guilt, or kind of put these shoulds into your head where I should be doing this or I should be doing that, when your plate is maybe already piled to the brim. So for an example, if you're in your family, you have two full-time working parents, or you're a single parent trying to work full-time at home, and then you have a child who maybe when they're not hiding under furniture, they're otherwise just refusing to do the daily tasks, and then you log on to Facebook and you see a beautiful Pinterest-worthy math work activity or something that your neighbor posted, that's probably not your priority for the day. So that's where just taking all of this with a grain of salt, with what you log on to social media and what you consume and how you compare yourself to others, I think is really what we're trying to get across. Okay, so quick review. Go ahead, Megan, sorry.
I was going to say, yeah, our last session was really on handling big emotions. I see some familiar names, so I think some were here, but this is just a quick, because behavior, and we'll kind of get to this, but behavior and emotions are related, obviously. And so, we just wanted to touch on that briefly, so I'll go ahead.
Yeah, so our very first presentation was obviously on giving yourself grace and showing yourself compassion. It's not human nature to do 7 jobs in a day. So being kind to yourself and your struggle. The second part, our second presentation, was about handling big feelings, and really we just have 3 main takeaways from that one. First, let's say your child is on the verge of a meltdown. give yourself a pause. So as much as you can create a little bit of space between whatever it is that is happening and your response, even if it's just 3 seconds to count to 3 in your brain and take a deep breath, create a little bit of space before you respond. So we want you to respond, not just react to your children's frustration. And then the second step would be to acknowledge whatever it is. Try your best to be calm, but acknowledge what it is that you see that they're feeling. And then the third, don't let your kid's big emotion alter what needs to be done. So that, I'm not sure that got thoroughly worked out last time during our presentation, but just because your child has a meltdown and you handed them one thing and they wanted something else, or whatever the case, that doesn't mean that we alter the boundary. That doesn't mean that we change what it is we were going to do just because they're not happy about it. So that's really just kind of a quick review of what we've covered in our 2 prior presentations.
Okay, so, you know, we had come up with all of these different strategies and tips that we were pulling from, and, you know, then we stopped and thought, really, you know, actually, I'm going to add this. I'm going to show you this one first. So the emotional cup. I'm not sure if people have.
Sorry. Can I pause you real quick? A question came in that said, what happens when it's not the kids, but the husband who is dealing with big feelings? I know that you guys sort of addressed that a little bit in the last one, but I just wanted to, because you were on that topic, to let you know.
Yes. So, and then Sarah also did have these recordings. So Sarah, do you want to share quickly where they can find?
They're on the event pages of the previous one. So if you had clicked interested or whatever, you should be able to go access it. But I also will post them on the Abiding Presence website. I'll find a way. I've posted them in various places, but I want to try to find a central place. So if you are interested in receiving those, just email me at sarah@abidingpresence.net. And I will get you the recordings personally, but I also will work on putting them somewhere on the website, the Abiding Presence Lutheran Church website, so that they're accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I think this actually does speak to all people. I mean, it says children, but this is true for, I mean, people don't stop. I mean, humans, you know, it's across the lifespan, that our emotional cup, when it's empty, we start having these big old feelings. I mean, you know, so the bouncing off the walls, can't stand still. I mean, this is describing some childhood behaviors, but stealing from other people's cups. So meaning kind of you're feeling yucky, so you're putting the yuck on other people. Also, just that negativity and irritability. I think one of the, I mean, if I was going to give like a elevator kind of comment to the person asking about, you know, the husband with the big feelings, is if this hasn't been tried yet, just having that direct conversation about that at a completely separate time, and trying just to explore what might be going on. I mean, you know, some men are more in touch with their feelings and can kind of go there, and it, you know, it might not be as readily available, but I noticed, I mean, starting with I noticed I've been pretty cranky or lately, like something, or been short fused, whatever kind of a more neutral term, and just trying to explore that a little bit might be a first step. But in terms of, you know, like thinking about the empty cup aspect is, you know, these kind of things, what fills a child's cup or a person's cup is connection. I mean, we have this opportunity to connect in a completely different way, but it's, you know, I'm sure people have seen all that Zoom fatigue. It's not the same level of genuine connection. You know, having to do things that you don't really want to do all the time, like homeschooling your kids. Can you tell I don't really like that? You know, just not being able to, I mean, all of these things are what fills you up, and then what empties it is, you know, so it's not so much rejection by peers, but that sense of isolation that empties it. You know, feeling fatigue, failing at something, feeling like you're forced to do something you don't want to do, all of these things are emptying your cup, and then you can't function as you might normally would. So, our kind of the first message, at least when you're thinking about working with your kids, whether that's getting them, we heard a lot about motivation and getting kids to do the tasks that you need them to do, is, if that relationship is strained because of all the dynamics have changed so much, it's focusing on connection first. Like you really, and if that might mean like your math lesson for the day is baking, from the box. I mean, you don't do some elaborate baking, just from a back of a box of muffins, and you're using that math. That's your math lesson, and that's your connection time. Or, I mean, that's just an example. Or playing a board game, and that can just be at night. And maybe there's a lot of screen time during the day, and then at night you do a board game. Those, just finding ways that connect, and whether or not it's academic or not, that's kind of step one. And with this, like, daily, so focusing on like, how did I find connection today? And that kind of leads to like establishing your non-negotiables. So everybody's non-negotiables are going to be different than other people's. And so I grew up in a house with my dad's a psychologist as well, and we had family meetings that my friends often tease me about. But we had 4 kids in our family, and I was the oldest. But we really worked out a lot of stuff during that time, like practical stuff like activities and chores, and also just fighting about things and getting it on the table and figuring it out. So a family meeting might be an opportunity to figure out like what is important this coming week. It's Sunday now, or maybe you do it Monday night, and figuring out what are the tasks that you and your children must accomplish each day, and then how do you get that done? And in that is self-care, and I should add connection, like that is included in kind of those non-negotiables, and you figure out what those are, and they're going to be different for everybody. And like Ali said, the social comparison kind of needs to be let go. And so comparing, what other things can you let go? Like you can't recreate school. We will talk a little bit about like what are some kind of developmentally appropriate levels to think about in terms of what you can do for school. It's lower than I would imagine many might think, because of kids at school for 6 to 7 hours a day. You also can't, fix their big emotions. You can't prevent them. Sometimes you just have to allow them to happen. And, we could have a whole nother session, and maybe we will, on siblings. You don't have to be the referee. That sometimes letting that go frees you up. Literally, just I personally don't get involved with my kids fighting, and nor did my parents. And we just literally walk out of the room, and then they figure it out in some way. It's not always pretty, but they get it done.
And if I could just add to the one before, I think in times like these, oftentimes we feel like at the end of the day, we're just thinking of all of the things that we didn't finish, or all of the tasks that got started but not completed, or I didn't do this for work, or I meant to do this and this and this. So when we talk about establishing what are your non-negotiables, so this might be the night before you're writing down very simple tasks, and then you are protecting and you're prioritizing that time. So if it's an important meeting that you have for work, an important project that you have to dedicate 2 hours to, if it's today we're all gonna wash our hair, like whatever it is, like you have those non-negotiables, and be realistic. So at the end of the day, like you got those tasks done, and then like create that boundary that's really strong. So if it is, I have got to work for a solid hour, then that's the expectation for your children during that time, is they will be doing a task for an hour. And then of course, emergencies, they knock, whatever, but you create that and you hold tight to that boundary. So if they want, to chat during this time, like that's not the time, it's a protected time. But like really pare it down to what are like the actual essential tasks, knowing that you're not going to get everything done every day, but you can feel good when you get the few things that were on your list, and you can have that satisfaction of actually checking it off.
And when I said like making a plan for the week, that's probably too much. I think I like what Ellie's saying in terms of each day, maybe for each person. And we are going to give some examples of what somebody's doing for getting like the school tasks done, which I think sounds like many of you mentioned is a stressful situation. So we can give you some examples on that. We always get to a point where we want to be sure that we have time to discuss. Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit last time, but just making sure that we are investing a bit of time into prevention. So no matter how many tips and strategies and things that we lay out, it's not going to help if you have a hungry child. So making sure all of their basic needs are met. So needs where they're getting, snacks or food regularly. If they're not feeling well, they're being attended to. And then if they're in need of physical movement, kids are used to recess and transitioning and moving and getting around and everything else. And with our limited park access and everything, I know that can be difficult. Is your space generally a yes space? So if you find yourself constantly like, don't touch that, don't do that, don't touch that, making sure that the space is set up so that you're not constantly having to interject and intervene. And then daily check-ins. So we mentioned this last time. We thought it was worth reiterating. Sometimes kids express really big outward emotions, but other times they turn inward, and they're not communicating when they're anxious or feeling sad, or they're starting to kind of withdraw, or they're getting really quiet. So just having a set, consistent time where you're checking in with them, either dinner time or before bed, whenever is a time that you can kind of connect with your children, and just really making that a part of your consistent schedule so that we can hopefully prevent those feelings from kind of more turning inward and becoming more isolated or withdrawn.
One of the other prevention ideas is to really focus in on, this is the chart I was mentioning, this comes from the Illinois State Board of Education, of how much time, minimum and maximum, I think on the maximum is like the max, because when you think about it, like this is direct time of doing like content. Doing a whole lot more than this during a time of, stress is just really not that doable. So, I mean, this really, yes, they're at school 6 hours a day, but first of all, they're not learning content all those hours a day. There are transitions, there's playtime, there's recess, there's specials, and all of that. Like, so thinking about, so for a first, second grader, 45 minutes to 90 minutes, so 1 to 2 hours for third through fifth grade. And really their attention span is short. So finding ways to switch those activities, or that they can use a timer, those visual timers that show I keep forgetting to bring that up, but show the visual, the time going away, or just using the microwave or Alexa, just using those as quick short time and then take a break. So that's really something.
I've got a couple of questions that came in. One person wanted to know, so with that chart, if we have a second grader and 1 hour of live with a teacher, so do they have only 30 more minutes of sort of like go time, and that's only going to cover one assignment? That's hard. That's hard because, yeah.
I think you have to listen to your child. Like, I think listen and watch. If they can handle more, and the thing is, I will say, I saw this chart, I found it. It is cited by, the Illinois Department of Education. I don't know what the psychological cognitive research is behind this, so I will put that caveat out there. I think it looks kind of like it makes some sense, but I don't know for sure. But I think it's, watching. But then I think if they can't do that much more and they're melting down after that 30 minutes, broken up into sections, then maybe that's a conversation with the teacher. I wouldn't say there was this chart I saw, I'm not doing it, but having this conversation.
Another question was just the, with that time, and I think you're probably going to cover this. One person said they struggle with the son's procrastination. So they wait, till right before bedtime to start the homework, and then it kind of all falls apart.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll get to some ideas for that. So the other thing, just kind of in terms of mindfulness, are being mindful of their levels of compliance, not compliance. Dr. Ross Green is one of my favorites. He's written several books, and we'll add this to the list in the back of this presentation. But it's The Explosive Child is, I think, his first one. So that's really about, kids who are really having big exploding emotions. Another one is Lost at School, which is really focused on kind of school type behaviors. And then there's a newer one called
Raising Humans.
Yes.
Raising Human Beings.
Yes. Raising Human Beings. And that's really for kind of just all of us. And the idea is, if we come into working with our children as kids can only do as well as they can do. They can't do more than they can do. And that has to do with, and if they're having trouble, there's a reason. It's either there's an environmental factor going on where the expectation doesn't match their capabilities, like meaning it's developmentally inappropriate, or, I mean, there's a host of reasons, or their feelings inside are not matching their availability to kind of handle it in that situation. So and then the whole, his whole approach is really about, or there's a skill deficit. That's one of his big things, is there's a skill deficit that they're missing. And the skill might not be an academic skill. It might be more of an executive functioning, like difficulty shifting between a non-preferred task, a preferred task to a non-preferred task. That's humans, but some have more trouble with that. And the nature of the tasks and the nature of the situation, especially now when you're in your home and it's not a direction given by a teacher with your classmates next to you, the dynamics just have completely shifted. I can't go through his whole philosophy right here, but the idea is then you kind of come into some problem solving with the child, getting curious, trying to figure it out, and what can we do to kind of modify that, and also putting some other strategies in place that we're going to talk about. I do recommend his books, though. They're very accessible, easy to read. Okay, so routines and predictability are really step one. The person that mentioned, kind of procrastinating and getting till bedtime, that's going to be hard. Because then you're dealing with a whole host of issues, like, now it's bedtime and now you want them to go to bed. And I'm not sure. I know it's probably different. It's probably a lot harder with like middle school, high school kids. But thinking about what needs to happen, and the reason why routines matter, and we'll kind of get to some motivating strategies, but routines and predictability help kids. Oh, this is supposed to be yours, Allie. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
You can finish. You're fine. You got it.
Safe and at ease. So there's so much uncertainty right now. So getting kids to feel the routines and predictability help kids feel secure, a sense of security. It creates those boundaries and allows you to set clear expectations, because the schedule and the routine, and we're not talking about routine in the sense of those color-coded Pinterest charts. If those work for you, go for it. They don't work for me. And many other people, because it feels, sometimes they're too rigid, but it allows, and we'll give an example of how the boundary next to the expectation and the routine allows it to speak for itself. So you're not having to be the bad guy. And then, lessening those transitions.
And the clear expectations, I would say that's a really human need. So if you could just imagine it for you. So if every day you went to work and the expectation was vague or unclear, or one day, the expectation was to do it a certain way, and then the next day you got talked to about how that was inappropriate, but then the following day, now it's okay. So that kind of vagueness is a difficult world to function in. So as much as our children fight against our boundaries or our clear rules or expectations, they actually desperately crave to know, when I do this, this happens, or what is my expectation? Am I allowed to do my homework right before bed, or is your expectation that I do it at a different time? So creating those really clearly defined expectations can help smooth the waters proactively.
expectations out with your child. I mean, that's what a lot of Ross Green's thing is saying. Here's the concern that I'm noting, and here's why it's a problem for me. Here's why I think it might be a problem for you. Can we come up with something that works for both of us? And then you're problem solving through that. And the time frame of doing things might be one of those problems to work through.
So this can look a lot of different ways. If you, within the school system, they have a lot of visuals. So if you walked into your child's classroom, you'd see the schedule on the day or on the board of what their day looks like. Children reference that constantly, from young age to middle school, like when they're in the classrooms and things are on the board. And it's nice because then teachers, when they get asked like, oh, when's this, when's that, they point to the board. And it's like, look at the board, so that they don't even have to engage. So if you were to Google visual schedules, you might see that beautiful image right there. Yes, the very first column. So if that's in your wheelhouse to do, great, as Megan was mentioning. If you have something super rigid, then that's probably not real life, because every day our expectations are different. So for you, it might just be a piece of paper. It might be Post-it notes. For me, since I have a little one, certain portions of the day we're really able to live in a Groundhog's Day. And I personally have the flexibility. I work more evenings. So I can create that routine without using visuals. So he knows, it's dinner time. Then after that, we're going to do our dance party or whatever it is where you as a family may connect. And then after that, it's our bedtime routine. So you don't even have to have visuals, because they know first comes this, then comes this, then comes that. But visuals or images are really helpful. I think next up is a video that we can show.
Yeah, I can share what we have been doing in terms of our routine. Like, it's not super rigid, but there are key elements. And like I said, the non-negotiable pieces have been established, and it is, and some things matter to some people that don't matter to us, that do matter to others, and vice versa. Like, my kids they don't have to get dressed before they do their school stuff. They don't, they have to get dressed enough so they can do their online, now that we're finally online, dressed enough for that. They eat breakfast, and then they have to get their school routine done and their key elements. And so we just write those things down, whether the teacher writes them down or I write them down, depending on my different children. And they have to get those done before the fun stuff, whether that's, playing or screen time or, and our goal is to be wrapped up around lunchtime, and they just have to get that done. And then there's some built-in, so it's kind of a built-in incentive, is if I want to do screen time, which they do, then they have to get their school stuff done first. So it's just listing it, and they just have to check it off, and then we move on. It was not super smooth right away, but now they just kind of know this is what we do. And then our rest of the day is pretty loose. And then we have dinner, and then we do bedtime stuff, and it's in repeat. But we'll give this example. I did like this one. Allie found this from a fellow school psychologist. We don't know, but.
We were struggling to do schoolwork from home. I feel like I tried every system on the internet. We made calendars and all sorts of color-coded schedules, and nothing worked. So I turned to a system that I use for my work that is really working for us at home too. What I love about this system is it's inexpensive. It uses Post-it notes, a Sharpie or a pen. I use a poster board, but you could just use regular paper. And finally, it ends the struggle with kids in doing their work. The problem with getting work done becomes between them and the board, not between them and me. If they want some time to go do something fun, they know they have to check the board first to make sure they're done with their work. It isn't me telling them that they can't do something because their work's not done. The board's telling them that. And I can be supportive and help them to get their work done so that they're able to do other things during their day. This system's really working for us. I hope it works for you.
First, you grab one of them that you want to do. but I want to do 20 minutes. Then you put it on the doing. Then once you're done with it, you put it on the done. Then you do another activity.
Okay. So obviously there's a lot of Post-it notes on there, but yours would not need that many, but it just kind of gives a general guideline of you have your non-negotiables of the things for the day, and then it gives your children choice of what it is that they want to do, and then kind of has that accountability factor, and then they also get the satisfaction of like, yes, that's done. I don't know if you guys like crossing something off of your to-do list as much as I do, but I know that kids appreciate that that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I already think I'm probably gonna use this. I had seen things like this before, but I think like the choice aspect is really, really important, because that's where you can eliminate some of the power struggle. It's not giving kids some sense of autonomy, and this is kind of comes into our next slide, which I think you were going to talk about, Allie, but oh wait, well, yeah, all right, so I'm going to do this and then I'll come back. Yeah, the choices, so the what they do might not be up for a lot of discussion, but the how and when and where might be, and that's where they can have that autonomy. So you're like, I don't care where you do this, and so they can do it in their room, they can do it outside, they can do it on the playground, I mean on the play set if they have one, like, you know, whatever it is, it just needs to get done before the other fun things happen. And you want to go to this?
Yeah, and that one was you too, if you want to do this one.
Yeah, so this is just if you want to break it down even simpler, to just one thing at a time, especially if your child's younger or just needs a lot more of that. So it's, you know, you can just make a little board that says, first you do this, and then you do that. And then that's that game or some sort of other break. That works if they're able to get back off and go into doing another first. So think about, you know, what kind of things should be that break or that reinforcement. I tend to, if possible, like doing a couple things and then, but yeah, you can put 3 things in that first and then whatever works for you and your own kids. And then, yeah, creating consistency with the transitions. Using a visual, you know, we were thinking of an example of you're in your office working and the kids have to, if it is something paper, they have to slide either a note or something that you finish that one thing. And then, you know, that's your cue that they go into the next thing or they've earned their break. Where there's a certain warning or you're using timers or you're kind of previewing what comes next. So just trying to think of how you can make that transition more consistent.
And this is more for when, so if you can have this, you know, this is our morning schedule and our afternoon schedule and every day is kind of similar or you know it, that's great. But I know that's not the case for a lot of us who are working during the day. So if your life is unpredictable and you have random calls throughout your day or you and your husband or spouse, or it's just you by yourself and you're trading off or doing different things, these are just strategies that even if you don't know what your afternoon looks like when it's the morning, you can at least know, and your kids can know, okay, this is my expectation for right now, and this is my expectation for what I'm doing next. So even if you don't know the whole day's schedule, and then transitions happen all day long. And so that's a way that you can create consistency and predictability in your child's day through the act of transitioning the same way every time. So if that's, we're getting ready to transition from one task to another, like, hey buddy, grab your timer, you can either set it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, however much time you need. So if you're able to have that person-to-person interaction with your kid for a transition, and every time that's what you do, grab your timer, then that creates predictability and they know, okay, we're getting ready to end one thing and go to the next, even if the day is kind of all over the place for you guys at home. And then the sliding the thing under the door, that's another cue for them I finished a task, now I'm moving on to the next. So you're transitioning the same way every time, which creates predictability, even if your day is not predictable.
I have a question from the board. For the choice board, this question was, does everything have to get done before they can get screen time, free time, or just one assignment? Wanted to see if you guys wanted to address that.
I think it's what works for you. You could do it where you put a couple things, so it doesn't, because that did look like a lot. I imagine most of those were small little assignments. So taking something big, like do your work, into small little segments. So what you could do, instead of doing 1, 1, 1 in the chart, you could do a couple activities, that you have to finish, and then all 3, say there's 3, are in the done section. Then you've earned some sort of break or screen time. It's whatever works for you. Or especially if your child's a little bit older or they're pretty independent and they just kind of want to get it done, you can do all 7, whatever it is, then they're done with their school for the day. It just kind of depends. I think with my 4th grader, it would be they do all 7 and get it done. For my 1st grader, she takes smaller breaks multiple times. She doesn't go on the screen, but she can play other things. And
I put Go Noodle up there. So I did a laundry basket and Go Noodle. So Go Noodle isn't, if you're not familiar, it's on YouTube, but it's an exercise. Megan, if you can flip back. So it's like a little workout thing. Kids love it. They have little mindfulness, meditation type things. They have dancing, and they might be little 5-minute little dance exercises or different things that lower elementary, mid elementary, little ones really like too. So that could also be, if they have a smaller attention span, do a task, have a Go Noodle break, and then that's for a set time. So they do it for 7 minutes. They're exercising, but it's screen time, but it's very active. And then now you have another first then. So that's another way to do it as well.
And you could generate what those thens are. You can do the ones that are, what are your break, what are your rewards or your breaks, they're kind of both, during the school time part of the day. And then what are they earning when everything's finished? And if what they're earning is screen time, then I would say don't also allow that in the morning, but other things. Like screen time, what I mean is like video games or YouTube or TV. These more active, somewhat educational activities. The other thing is like also creating for things that they really avoid or really are difficult for them. I have a client that is working on just a really simple reinforcement chart where she has to do something that she doesn't really like doing. This is a 7-year-old, and she has to do it 4 times. It's across several different days. It's, each of those Monday through Thursday. And then after she fills it up and she does it without complaint, then she's earning like a craft or some sort of, it is a tangible. I mean, I do try to recommend staying away from tangible rewards, but it's something that this parent was already going to give her anyway. It's another activity that she can do as like a break, another time of day, especially during this quarantine time. So yeah, just creating, and all she has to do is just fill out each circle each time she gets it done. So that's reinforcing in and of itself. How much closer are you getting to earning that reward? And we'll get that in a positive reinforcement. Allie, we do this a lot. We get close to the end.
I know. So I don't want to rush through this, but I will just the main bullet points. So this is just really how to try and avoid kind of those power struggles with children. It's human nature. People in general do not like constantly being told what to do. So I referenced these 2 books, How to Talk So That Little Kids Will Listen, and then there's a classic, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. So a lot of this is pulled from those books, but they just give really, really great tips on how to speak with your children in a way that's not just feeling like they're constantly being told what to do all day long. So Megan mentioned before, but giving choices. So that might be like, oh, would you like to clean up now or in 5 minutes? Would you like to start the day with books, or would you like to start with free time? And then being playful and silly. I know when we're tired and we're stressed and we have a million things on our mind, being playful and silly takes a lot of energy and almost feels impossible at times. But what also takes a lot of energy is having your children not do what you tell them to do and then having to go down that path. So as much as you can try and be silly, make it a competition, like, oh, how fast can you pick up your toys? Or if you have a little one, like, oh, the shoe's so hungry and wants to eat your foot. Or like, if you don't put on your pajamas, no story time. Like, well, that's kind of like, kids might fight against that. So instead, like, hey, can you put on your pajamas while your eyes are closed? So kind of coming up with like creative ways to be kind of silly, novel, create competition while you're asking kids to do things versus just telling them to do things. Another thing we mentioned, timers. So there's that natural resistance to being told what to do. So putting your children in charge, sort of. So like the example of giving them the timer and having them set the timer for 5 minutes, and then the timer's telling them that it's time to transition. Or you're, instead of telling them like, hey, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, you're more telling them facts. So for example, instead of saying something like, what are you thinking? You left the milk out, it's going to go bad, put it up. Giving them information like, oh, if you leave milk out, it goes bad. And so you're giving them information, and hopefully inside their mind, they're like, oh, I need to go put the milk up, instead of just constantly hearing from you, put it up, put it up, put it up, do this, do that.
Yeah, so this also comes from those books. So, sorry, oh yeah. So just being mindful. I mean, I think one aspect that comes up a lot is, you know, parents saying they're giving direction, they're using a normal tone and they're saying it, and then they have to get to that scream mode for their child to actually listen. And I think we do kind of get up to a place where our kids can kind of become mom or dad deaf, where, so the idea is you want to describe what you see or use like frequent but small reminders, kind of just one word, shoes, and pointing to the shoes still being out. They know what you mean. They're just kind of not listening, not following through. And, you know, so, or like we said, taking action and letting the feelings flow, and, you know, just saying like, okay, you're not ready for that right now, and kind of taking it away, whatever that thing is that they're not doing, and kind of letting that tantrum after you've given one or two. A lot of this is really about following through, and then describing what you will do. You can't always control what somebody else will do, but you can say like, I'm not chasing you around. I'm sitting here and I will help you with your math assignment when you're also sitting at the table. And then ignoring it until then, and letting them kind of come to you. And so avoiding nagging really as much as possible, because it's not effective, and it's just going to create some conflicts there. So really just like, yeah, sometimes just repeating the word. So let's see, where are we? Okay, we're almost at 5. So just briefly, I think we've embedded this throughout our conversation today, but trying to focus on what you want to grow, what you want to increase. So acknowledging and encouraging what you want to see. And sometimes positive reinforcement gets a bad name because it looks like empty praise, like good job, you know, for not doing something, just kind of that participation trophy sort of idea. But really, if you're just noticing what kids are doing, that is reinforcement. So I noticed that you got started on your work by yourself. That's it. You don't even have to say, and I'm proud of you, or just that's it, because it's not all, it doesn't even have to be about you. You're not, they don't do things well just for you as the parent or as the teacher. It's really just praising that effort, praising that what you noticed, and acknowledging it and bringing it to attention. And then sometimes you can add in, like we said with the other example, you can add in some extra things of, if everybody gets their work done by noon, then you can have your screen time. That might be it. Or everybody gets it all done. I didn't have to remind you, I didn't have to give extra reminders. Now we get to do a game in the evening as a family, something like that. But I think, let's see. I think we already talked about this slide too, but I thought this was cute. Our kids know how to push our buttons. So one big thing about decreasing negative behaviors is deciding what direction you are willing to follow through with. So sometimes I find myself regularly in a situation where I'll be like, I need you to stop touching that. And then I'm like, do I actually care? I don't know if I actually care. Now I have to get up and follow through with that. Because if you give the direction, you got to follow through, or they're not going to follow through. I mean, why would they? Because you only mean it 50% of the time or 30% of the time. But if you mean it every time you say it, which is really hard to do, that's why only give directions you're willing to follow through with. That takes some practice.
And water the seeds, not the weeds. So what is it that you want to grow? So that's a lot with the positive attention that you're giving, or attention. So if they're whining and they're upset or they're frustrated or this, and you're constantly engaging when they're doing the things that you don't want them to do, try and water or attend to those behaviors that you like. So acknowledging, like Megan gave the example, oh, you started your work right away. Oh, you're working so hard on that, activity right now. So you're really trying to turn it around to where your attention is going towards the things that you want to see, and not so much the things that, you'd rather not be occurring, not be taking place. The next one, I know a lot of you are Fairfax County, and I wasn't sure if you're familiar. There's a Healthy Minds blog that they have. I'm sure you guys are inundated with resources on what to do to fill your day, but this comes specifically from Fairfax, and they have some really cute creative ideas. And this could be for the weekends or whatever too. So those keeping your children occupied while at home. And you don't have to pick out the activities. I mean, you can read them aloud to your child, or if your child can read, just click on the link, and then it has a whole list of really cool, fun, unique things. And then there's a parent resource center too that has some good stuff.
And then, the adage of there isn't, parents can't take care of other people until they've filled themselves up. So having those boundaries, I think we think of self-care, it has, it's out there a lot right now, but self-care is, for me, it's about boundaries. It's setting clear and consistent boundaries of what you will do and how you will take your time for yourself, and putting yourself first. We have nailed this one. We have stayed at home. So I think we can check that one off of our list. But, it doesn't have to be bubble baths and spa days. It can really just be taking a step back, asking for help, forgiving yourself. These are things that are also self-care. So it's important that we fill our own emotional cups up first.
And maybe you take a 10-minute walk every morning by yourself with your coffee, and that's your self-care. And if your child asks to come with you, and maybe say no, just say no, hold that boundary firm, and this is your time to go and drink your coffee and be alone for 10 minutes. So really hold firm to that boundary.
And then this is just really like a quick summary of, what we've gone over today. This always seems to happen. I think we just start talking and we come up with more and more examples. So we often run out of time. But, these are just some of the things that we talked about. Connection with your family, genuine kind of finding that time that you're all kind of, whether it's all together or in pairs, or small groups, whatever, to establish that connection, and then to practice self-care. And then the rest will be easier if you have those two established. So kind of, I think we often do these after, and we focus on the behavior first. I think if we focus on connection and self-care first, then we have a better chance.
And that just goes back to our initial slide of the ships and where you are in this journey and where your children are. So we did share a lot of, strategies based with positive reinforcement and visual schedules and all of these things, which are fantastic. But depending on where your family is on that scale, connection, if you can only focus on two things, connection and self-care, and then everything else can wait.
And so this is just the information for our practice. Allie and I are both doing teletherapy and teleconsultation. Sometimes we're having success working with parents individually. Sometimes it only just takes a couple sessions. And what's nice about it is it's very tailored to where you are right now. And sometimes it's doing 1 or 2 sessions and that's it. Other times it may be, do 1 or 2 full-length sessions and then just a couple check-ins a week or 2 later. Or more ongoing than that. Or in some cases, it's possible to do individual therapy with children, and that is an opportunity as well. Usually we do try to combine that with working with the parents as well. So we've, of course, run out of time, but I'm available to stay on a little longer. Oops, I'm sorry. If anybody wants to ask anything.
Hi, this is Julia. I just wanted to thank you for this wonderful session. And I've learned a lot, and I try to get my husband to sit in on it. I don't know, purposely or because he's so preoccupied, he didn't. But also thank you for recording this, because I'm hoping that I can show it to him. Do you find that a lot more women participate in these talks than men?
Yes, like substantially more, like almost all.
Yeah.
So he's not alone on that. Yeah, moms, I think, kind of take on the emotional well-being of our families many of the times, and this is part of it. Should it be that way all the time? I don't know, but I find that that's often the case. So I don't think he's alone on that.
Well, I was looking at your chart of connection and self-care, and I've never heard it being said that way, that if those 2 things are taken care of, then everything else will be much easier to manage.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, there still may be other work to be done, but you're going to be farther. You'll have a better chance of it working.
Yeah. I don't want to turn this into a couples therapy, but it seems like, I feel like I try to connect with the kids and try to do activities. My husband, I guess, fortunate and unfortunate. We live in an apartment, so in order for him to work, he goes to work about 4 times a week, Saturdays included, so he can get work done, because it's very hard with 2 kids and trying to have quiet time and focus time and not having somebody barge in on you every 5 minutes. So again, fortunate, unfortunate. Fortunate for him that he can escape. Unfortunate, I'm here. And then I have most of my work is done between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. The connection part is, so I'm having a hard time in getting him to connect. With the kids and I are kind of, I put more effort because they're here and we have nowhere to go. And then what's lacking is self-care for me. And I don't believe like as much for him. His has come down as well, but for me, it's like non-existent.
Yeah. And yeah, and sometimes a little really goes a long way. It may never be, especially during this time, going to be even in terms of time between you and the kids and him and the kids, but finding, or yourself and, all the different dynamics, but sometimes really just a 10-minute connection or a meal together where you're all genuinely connected. Trying to find, like, maybe just generating together as a family or as a couple, like, what are some just 10-minute chunks and activities that people that maybe could be done.
Yeah.
I've got a question coming in from the chat room, and this is kind of a unique question. Do you think I'm setting myself up for failure to get a Zoom tutor for an area of weakness during this time? In person would be better, but I don't know when that will be. My thinking is I have time to commit to it now, but the child won't like it on Zoom or in person. How would I know when to keep at it versus quit?
I'm going to get personal. I did that exact thing. I am doing tutoring with one of my children, and it is through Zoom. And I had the same questions of, is that going to be too much? Is this so extra right now? And ultimately we decided to try it for a trial period for a couple weeks. And we do have a reinforcement system so that it makes it more desirable, that there's something that my child is getting out of it. And it's going better than I expected. That's just my experience. I think I wouldn't do anything that's a commit. If it's something that you have to commit for months at a time, I think doing something on a trial basis, a week or two of something, is potentially worth trying.
And it also depends on where your child is on the scale. So, I mean, examples of, is your child hiding under furniture and, can't complete daily tasks and absolute meltdown when you ask them to brush their teeth, or, if they're in that kind of a mental state, then really honing in on those academics, that may not be the focus for your family. But then on the flip side, maybe they might appreciate getting instruction from someone who's not mom, or dad. So it really is that balance of trying to figure out what's best for your child and what really they can handle. I know that teachers are well aware that every single family has a different situation right now, and people cannot afford tutors, or if they can, but their child can't handle one right now, or they're not doing the tasks. So whatever your choice is academically, just know that we will all be in a very similar situation in the fall, or whenever we get back, and that the teachers will do their best to get all of the children back to where they need to be.
And I think that's, and I'm sure you would want the person asking would like a clearer answer than, yes, do it. Again, it so depends, and we'd be happy to talk further about that. But
yeah.
A quick question, sorry. That's a great question about the tutoring. So I'm the mom of the procrastinator, and now I'm thinking perhaps I'm the one to blame, because I've signed him up for some virtual classes that he's just, I don't know, he's overwhelmed. But it feels like from the morning I'm trying to get him to do his assignments, which are sent. He doesn't have Zoom assignments. So what I had done is I'd signed him up for a book club, and it was like a spirit camp that is not academic, but he enjoys it. But I feel like that gives us a little bit of structure to our time. But in doing so, we don't start homework until 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. So should I take all of that away and just have him focus on academics, or is it good to have some structured time?
Do you mind sharing how old he is?
He's 10, going on 13.
Oh, okay. I get it. Yeah. I'll have that conversation with your child. Like, what things, like putting it all out there, like what are the different things that you kind of want, I'm sorry, did you say he or she?
He.
What things you want him to get done, and what things just kind of coming up with maybe some compromise on that. If he's not going to do it anyway, and it's a fight, and it's causing more stress for everybody, I think it's a matter of picking, that's what picking your battles really kind of means, is what is super important, and your intentions are trying to figure that out.
It's really funny because forever in me trying to get him to do something, it takes me an hour, and for him to actually finish, it takes 15-20 minutes. Yeah. So although he starts at 7, 8 o'clock, he's been able to finish most of his homework, maybe 1 or 2 assignments he won't get done until the next day. So in a way, I feel like he's thinking, well, I'm going to get it done anyway, so why don't I just start at the end of the day? But then I don't know.
And if it works, yeah, I think maybe coming up with a plan, what's our plan for the day? Here's what's working for me. Here's what's not working for me. Here's what do you think is working for you? What do you think is not working for you? And coming up. But I think giving some of that at 10, like you said, going on 13, they do need to have some autonomy there.
Okay, thank
And
you.
you could use that very similar board choice to where you have Post-it cards and or Post-it notes, and you're putting those on there together. Like, this is what I want you to get done today. What are you putting down on your Post-it? Like, what are your non-negotiables, so that you're kind of creating that together and having his input.
I'm definitely going to try the chart. It's a really useful chart. The only thing is, when he was in school, he would always complain that I would be making him do things that he doesn't want to do. And for the things that he wants to do, he never gets the time to do them.
So putting that in the schedule too, or kind of creating, like, if you're going to create his schedule where it's like, whatever, I'm just making up time slots, but 10 to 12 is our academic time, or 10 to 11 is our academic time. And then you have more fun stuff at a different time where he has his fun activities that he gets to do and enjoy. And what are those that he wants to be there.
So use two different charts, the choice chart and the time chart together.
You can, I mean, you can really create it however you want it to be. You can have a schedule to where, like, your expectation and his expectation is between this time. That's when the academic stuff takes place. So then within that window, then you can use the other, like, Post-it notes or whatever. Just having those different visuals as options is just, I know that Megan kind of loosely has a schedule. Like, she shared that she wants everything pretty much done before lunch. So for her, all of those academic tasks are at the beginning of the day. And that's kind of that calendar of what does your daily schedule look like. Academics are kind of front loaded. But within that front spot, you could still use, first you're going to do this, then you're going to do that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
I would, I think we're gonna have to wrap up. We're past our time here, but we definitely appreciate the conversation.
Yes.
And thank you so much for joining in, everyone. Like we said, we are available for if you want to set up a one-on-one time, if anybody wants to do that with either of us or anybody else, we are happy to do that through our practice. And those
Very much.
considered therapy, so it is, you can submit for reimbursement for your insurance. Usually, so not every insurance reimburses, but many do.
Thank you guys for joining. We are going to post the recording of this session on the event page. And Megan and Allie, if you could post a slideshow, or like at least the resources. Some folks were asking about that. That would be helpful. And I'll try to figure out a way to put everything on the website, the Abiding Presence website. So I got to do some technological stuff. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, Megan and Allie. Thanks everybody for coming and being valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, guys.